All right. Welcome back for the thrilling conclusion of Drupal development and best practices. I think we have about 45 or so minutes left. I definitely want to make sure all the questions are answered and stuff like that. We also have some shirts at the front if people want limited sizes. We have like men's larges, men's smalls, and women's smalls. But feel free to take one for yourself or some for your team. I'm happy to. They're pretty nice quality kind of things. So. Feel free, but and then also prepare questions or ask questions as we go. But the sort of a roadmap for what I want to talk about sort of in part two is I want to get into some of the more, maybe some of the more heavy lifting kind of stuff you can do in the platform. We've definitely talked about sort of like generally how to push code from dev test live and talk about really like some of the sort of base use cases. But I want to get into some more complicated stuff. So we're going to talk about how to move the database around or the files directory around without the code. Going to talk a lot about the high performance stuff, and are going to try to and then do a quick demo of this multi-dev setup that's very cool, as well as just questions or other stuff. But to sort of get rolling with this, I think one of the things we did right before the end was to talk about how that test environment works. And you sort of saw I was pushing code up really fast, but what I can do is we can go ahead. I'll show you sort of how this kind of the test environment can be used a little more robustly. Like one of the things that we really do want to try to get Pantheon is people to do a lot of testing. And so one thing that we can do is go ahead. We'll add one more module. Which module do we want to use? Let's add views. Views is part of the triumvirate of the Earl Miles modules. So we'll go ahead and add one more module to the site. And views obviously isn't going to break the site, but one of the things that definitely matters is you want to make sure that when you push code live, you don't break the site. Like the reason to have the test environment is that you want to basically be able to, in the test environment, make sure that anything that you push to production is not going to break. And the key here is that Pantheon, all of these dev test and live environments, these are all running on the same kind of infrastructure. Live might have a few more resources, but they're the same versions of PHP, same versions of MySQL, same configs and setup for all of them. And this is really, really important. Like if you've ever developed a site and it's like, doesn't work, I can't replicate in my dev environment, only is a problem in production, or like my version is different than that and there's a problem. Like that happens a lot. And that really sucks as a developer because it works on your local machine, doesn't work, or it works on your dev instance, doesn't work on the production instance. So those are hard bugs to debug. One of the things Pantheon does is we say, look, test is the same as live for all the versions and all the config. So you have really high confidence that if it will work on test, it'll also work on live. One of the things that we also do to really make this easy is there's this option I didn't click before called pull files and database from live environment. And what this is this is basically going to do what I think you really should do almost for all the different testing you do. It says when I hit this button, two things will happen. Thing one is it'll take that code, the new code I committed from dev, and it'll push it to test. Same as before, right? Update, test. But it'll also pull the content, which is the database and the files from live, back down to test. And so what test then becomes when I hit this button is it becomes a sort of like perfect representation of what will happen when I actually deploy the code live. Because it has the latest config from the live site, any views changes, any content that's added, anything that's been done on the live site, all of that is pushed into test, and the new code is pulled up so that you have really high confidence. Because I just ran this code on test. If my test environment still works and still behaves the way I think it behaves, when I hit this button right here to pull code into testing, I have very, very high confidence that it's going to work the way I expect. If it doesn't work in test, I can go back and try again. But that it's the kind of thing that pull content from live is super important. And it's one of the things that if you're doing this sort of development on your own, that maybe you have your dev environment is out of date, or your live environment is out of date, or test environment is out of date, and maybe you don't update every time because it's sort of a pain to go dump the database, dump the files, put the files in the right place, make sure its permissions are right, get the database, drop the old one, put the new one in, and doing that every time takes a lot of time. And Pantheon makes it easy. Hey, click one button and go. And that's one of the key sort of, I think, values to use the test environment is because it's easy, you suddenly have a lot more, I think, incentive to use the test environment. So I use it a lot with the dev work I do, and I would definitely encourage you to do it. The other tools that we have sort of that get into this workflow tool is you actually behind the scenes have a lot of power to do a lot of control over the database's files. Yeah?
Sorry, back to this other issue. So what happens when PHP version 5.987 comes out? Do you load it to the dev? Or?
Yeah, so the question is, what happens when new PHP or MySQL versions come out? So I would say that that's responsibility of Pantheon. So when there's new versions of stuff that come out, we'll update our infrastructure and update to the new versions. We'll update all the config, and you shouldn't have to worry about it. The exceptions, of course, are new versions of PHP do change how PHP works.
But that's never broken a Drupal.
And that's obviously never broken any PHP sites. So they all run perfectly fine. That's something that we definitely will have to handle with, especially PHP 5.5 coming out. One of the good things, though, is that Drupal itself has some pretty good, it'll recommend the PHP versions and stuff like that. So we sort of keep very close attention to which versions of PHP are running and are required for each version of Drupal and try to keep that stuff there. But we're running, I think, PHP, when we update new versions of PHP, we do a lot of testing. And what we'll probably do is have, for the next big release, we'll have a sort of sandbox area people can play with to make sure the stuff's up to date. But we don't want to break anyone's stuff, and we're not going to push out changes that do. But it's something that we sort of handle on our end, and you shouldn't have to worry about. All right, so workflow tools. So workflow, I sort of showed it before, but it's more interesting now that we have a lot of extra options. So what workflow lets us do is it lets us move around the database and files for each of the different environments. And I say database and files together because Pantheon treats your database and your files as one thing, as content. We don't think of them as different things. The reason for that is that the files, when you upload files into Drupal, add an image to a blog post, add something to the WYSIWYG, that typically goes into the files table and is managed by Drupal CMS. And so Drupal's unhappy if you move the database to a site and you don't also move the files. If you've ever been doing development on a local environment or on a dev environment, and you pull down the new database from live, but you don't bring the files, and you have a bunch of broken links, and that sucks. You don't want that. So what we do is we treat them the same. So every time you move files, you're also typically moving the database, and that's a great best practice. And because it's just one button, makes it really easy. You can, if you have needs, you can uncheck these boxes and only move files or something, but typically you never have to do that. One of the things the workflow tool is good at, excuse me, is you get the ability to sort of clone environments. And a really common way that this will work is I'm in the dev environment right here. And what I want to do is I want to clone the live environment back to dev. This is typically called refreshing the dev environment. And what happens is when I hit this button, this is actually going to take the latest changes in live, the content and the files, pull it back to dev. So that now my dev instance is like a perfect representation of live. This is really helpful if you're doing development and stuff's changed on live and you hey, someone posted a blog post that needs some extra CSS. I want to do dev on that to make it look right. I can actually go ahead and clone the database back from live to dev, running the latest stuff, and so I can make changes with a lot of confidence. And that's something that's a good best practice to do, just to keep, when you're deving as close to the live environment as possible with code is really important. Pantheon makes it easy to do the refresh. So that's using the clone operation. We also have the import operation if you want to import new stuff. So if you have a database or something you want to overwrite, you can just go ahead and add the URL or the files to upload. That's typically not used that much, but if you have use cases, there are plenty, you can do it that way. Exporting allows you to actually take the code and the files and go off the platform. So you hit export. This works very much like a backup, but only for the individual thing. So Saturday, June 22nd at 10:52, we backed up the database, and here, I'll make that bigger, and then I can go ahead and grab it down, and that'll download it off the cloud. So I have the database and the files. And then wipe will actually have us start over. So we'll go ahead and we'll go wipe, For things that are super like dangerous, we make you like type the thing that you're going to do so that you know, I understand the consequences of this action. That's for obviously deleting and wiping and a couple other things. But sometimes wiping is really helpful because you can start over if you have an installed profile or something you want to test. You can sort of see if I go back to my dev environment, it's gone. So I don't have any stuff there. But it's easy to get back. I can go back to my workflow tools, clone from live, hit a button, and then it'll go replace the database and replace the files. And this is super helpful because the robots are doing this. The robots always do it right, and you have a lot of info. You can also see, as I said, with active jobs, what's going on. So you can sometimes these things take a while if you have a lot of files, but it'll sort of show you here. However, we have optimized the platform to try to be as fast as possible with this thing. One of the really great pieces of technology on Pantheon is our file system. It's called Valhalla. There's some blog posts from our CTO, David Strauss, on our blog. You can read about it. But basically, it stores all of your files in a large Cassandra ring so that you have, they're all sort of available to every instance on the platform because it's running in the cloud. But the really great piece is that to actually copy files between environments, we don't have to move big chunks of images and uploaded files between file systems. We just change some pointers on the Valhalla database to say these files, these hashes, these files go to these sites. So even if you have 2 gigabytes of files and you have to clone them between environments, it takes a little bit, but it doesn't take anything near what it would take to copy 2 gigabytes of data. And that's a super win on Pantheon because I know I do a sort of part-time work at this bicycle store in San Francisco. We have a ton of bike pictures on the website, and they're like 4 gigs of pics. And so when you have to move them back and forth, it takes a long time. On traditional environments, Pantheon's very fast, and that's good. But long-running jobs are right here. There is an option also if you use Chrome. I've turned it on, but if you haven't, it actually lets you have desktop notifications show up. So when things happen, it'll actually pop up a little box so that you can do a backup and then go do something else, and it'll pop up. Your backup is done. Come back to Pantheon, which is sort of fun. OK, so as I said, I cloned that thing up here. So now instead of the install screen, I've got my site information back, which is really cool. So that's the workflow. We still have no errors, which is great. Backups we've talked about. OK, that is good. Let's do. Let's see, what else is super useful? All right, let's talk about performance. So we have this site. It's up and running, and I've got the live version here. And one of the things that developers always want to do is they want to make sure their site is fast. Fast Drupal sites are good because it means that people can see your stuff better. It means that people don't leave as quickly, and it means that just everyone has a really good experience. In that sort of world of performance, there's really 2 kinds of things when people say I want a fast or high-performant Drupal site. What they mean is sort of 2 things. One is it is actually just straight up performance, which is how fast this page gets delivered. So how many seconds or microseconds does it take to go from asking for it to getting it. The other piece of sort of area that's really important is scalability. So that's how many people at once can access a page. And those are sort of different problems. Pantheon helps with both. But performance is sort of, I want to get this thing really fast. Scalability is, I've got 1,000 people that are coming to my site. Please don't go down. So one of the tools that we use, Pantheon uses to help with this is a technology called Varnish. Varnish is definitely a standard in the Drupal community. It's a reverse proxy cache. What Varnish basically will let you do is it'll in memory store all the rendered HTML of the page. So when I go to a site like getpantheon.com, which is our public site, you'll, instead of having to hit the database to get this, it'll just go ahead and it already knows that all of this code is what the site is. I'm a logged out user, so I don't have any specific extra changes or permissions. I don't have an admin bar or anything like that. And what it lets you do is it just sort of serves that out. So you can see I'm clicking around. Some of these things happen pretty fast. And the reason for that is that because I'm using Varnish, I don't have to hit PHP. I don't have to hit MySQL. It just returns the rendered content off the page. And that is super awesome. And that's what Varnish does by default. It's sort of a little bit tricky to set up. In the Drupal 6 world, you couldn't set up Varnish with Drupal 6 core. You download Drupal.org. You had to run a friendly fork of Drupal called Pressflow, which was developed by Four Kitchens here in Texas. It's basically add some changes to Drupal core to run Varnish. If you install Drupal 6 in our platform, we actually apply these patches that Pressflow is to your Drupal 6 site so that you can run the reverse proxy cache, which is really great. But all this stuff is, to set it up by yourself requires you have to set up a Varnish server. You have to make sure that your ports are set up so that people hit Varnish, and then it backends to the Nginx or Apache web server. You have to set up this like VCL file that has a bunch of controllers to tell which things are allowed, which things aren't allowed. Pantheon sets all that up for you. Every site on Pantheon is running Varnish, and all your traffic goes through Varnish. Which means that if you're running even the smallest site on Pantheon and you get like a major news event, or you have a video that goes viral or something really important happens and you have a lot of people look at your site, all of those people, if they're looking at just like the blank, like the front page as a logged out user, will hit the Varnish cache, and it return very, very fast. And that's something that is there because we have a cluster of servers that all run Varnish on our cloud network that sort of is our edge. So everything that hits Pantheon for requests goes through that Varnish server. And that's a nice like high performance technique that is sort of a pain to set up on your own. We support that for you automatically and can sort of help. So
on the performance settings page?
Yeah, so there are some settings you need to do it. Those get enabled by default. So the question is, on the performance settings page, there's some stuff about Varnish. That's true. By default, Pantheon will set up all the right settings for you. So it'll say, hey, cache the page for anonymous users, have a minimum cache lifetime of nothing, so that you can get the latest content when it clears, and expire all caches pages in 15 minutes. This is the default, which means pages will be kept in the cache for 15 minutes. You can set it longer if you want a longer timeout, but 15 minutes is usually a good indicator, which means people will get almost always the newest stuff, and stuff will only go out of fashion after 15 minutes.
But does it set those default settings on dev as well?
Yes, yes. The caching here, so it expires pages after 15 minutes, so they only sit around for 15 minutes. You can always expire them by clicking clear caches here, and that'll invalidate the Varnish cache along with everything else. The cool thing too is then once you get it working, you can go ahead and test, is Varnish working? It'll say, oh, here's the details. I must have just cleared caches here. Let's try this one again. Want my gold star? And it'll go back in. The header information you really want to make sure stuff is being served by Varnish, so via Varnish, and then the age of the page, which is really helpful. Other stuff that's sort of helpful with performance, we use, there's something called APC, which is a pretty nice package for caching. It captures like some of the memory objects in PHP. It'll give you about a 3x improvement on performance if you install it. We run that on the platform. Just everybody has that by default, no problem. We tweak the MySQL settings and we tweak the PHP settings to sort of make it as high performance as possible. If you're curious about that, one of the things that you also get when you use the SFTP mode, this is where I was pushing the changes. Aside from actually just the code, there's some other stuff in here that I didn't show you yet. One of which is the various configurations for Nginx, which is our web server, PHP INI, the PHP FBM conf, and stuff like that. These aren't things that you need to change, so you won't need to change the MySQL or the Nginx conf, but you can see it if you want. So if you're curious about high performance, you can sort of walk through some of these configurations and see some of the stuff we did. We allow a little more memory and change some of the packet sizes and stuff like that. The upload size is set pretty high. You have the option to change that by setting it during PHP runtime. And you can set. There's a number of options you can set with like an any set in PHP. We try to keep the really crazy stuff away, but we try to give developers a pretty wide latitude of stuff. That's definitely a pro developer kind of thing.
Which memory do you give PHP?
So it depends a little bit on your plan. So one of the things I didn't talk about yet, but can, is that so all the stuff I'm showing you is free. It does cost money if you want to go live. That's our business model. And one of the things we do is we try to incentivize people, like, as you have bigger sites and your stuff grows, you can move up for plans. So the smallest plan is $25 a month for personal site, and they get 256 megabytes up to 50 for PHP. And then as you move up for smaller sites that are professional, you get a professional plan. Business is sort of our recommended, like if you're running a serious, large site, you want the business plan. And then we have Enterprise and Zeus, which are for larger organizations. For big sites that have 24/7 support and big dashboards, if you have 100 sites and stuff like this. But we have this matrix here that offers some details around stuff that people might be interested in. So PHP memory limit, you get 512 if you go to a business plan. Valhalla storage is our file system storage, how much storage you get depending on what you're doing, and how many PHP worker processes you get and stuff like that. And these are sort of, and the Varnish, as I'm talking about, is included for everything, so everyone gets Varnish. But this page is sort of cool. You can sort of see some of the options and sort of pick the plan that's right for you. We definitely want people to have a good fit for what they're doing. So we try to say, hey, for your monthly page views, if you're doing thousands of pages personal, up to 100,000 professional, hundreds of 100,000s business, that kind of stuff. And that affects some of the features, but we try to give as many features to developers as possible because we want people to be really great Drupal peoples. That's Varnish, and you get it sort of by default. You can sort of check to see if Varnish is working, and that's really great. Another thing for high performance that is pretty cool, and also just for general development, I assume folks in the room use Drush for development. So Drush is great. If you're not familiar with it, you should definitely check it out. It's a sort of like a Swiss Army knife of Drupal developers. So it's on the command line, but it's extremely powerful. And what Drush lets you do is it lets you run, lets you turn on modules, download modules, like reset caches, all the stuff you want. Typically, you run Drush on the server that you're developing on. But with Pantheon, because Pantheon's in the cloud, there's some newer ways to sort of work with it. One thing you can do to use Drush on Pantheon, which helps for performance and help for development, is on your main page, you can sort of see, here's a picture of my site, and I have this download Drush aliases button. This is actually gonna let you get set up for Drush for all of your sites. So if you're using Pantheon, you're not using Drush, you download Drush, get Drush installed, and then what you do is you check out this file right here. So this is the pantheon.aliases Drush file, and I'll go ahead and save that to the desktop. Ooh, HTML, that's not good. I'll go ahead and save that to the desktop. And that's what that is this is like an alias file for Drush. And what you just need to do is place it from the desktop where I put it into your .drush folder, which if you've installed Drush, you have this like little Drush folder that has a couple things. You do drush cc drush to clear Drush's own cache, which is sort of cool. And then if you hit drush sa, what you get, here, I'll make this. If I hit drush sa, this is showing me the aliases in Drush. So this is a feature, if you haven't used Drush aliases, definitely really valuable. These are allowing Drush to execute commands on remote servers. So this is letting me run Drush on the Pantheon system without having to even be logged in. So I can run drush sa on my local. This is going to hit the server and actually report back. So you can see I'm running this. This is on my local computer, Circus to a Whirlwind, but it's showing me that I'm connecting to dev.migrateDrupalSite.gotpantheon.com, and it knows the host name and the bindings and all this kind of stuff. But this is great because I can go ahead and if I want to clear the caches, I can clear the caches on my dev site right here from the command line. If I am in SFTP mode, which is very cool, I can actually go ahead and download other modules. So this is another way to add modules. I think the third or fourth we've done today. So I can use Drush, and I can hit Drush, my alias, DL for download, and then we'll download admin menu.
Is there anything Drush doesn't
Oh, there's a bunch more. There's some even special stuff we have on here. So I just downloaded project admin menu to that thing. And if you go in, this is super magic, right? I hit Drush on my command line, on my local machine, set down the admin menu. I go back to my dev site, and it knows it's already downloaded admin menu to the server, and it's ready to put into Git. So I used Drush to download the module. I added it to Git through the command line, but I don't have it. Oh, that's my. I don't have it yet on my dev site because I have the toolbar module installed and I haven't actually enabled the module. So I could go to modules right here and find the stuff and click the buttons. Or if I want to use Drush, I can do right in Drush. Yeah, let's make this a little bigger. I could do Drush PM disable. I'll disable the toolbar module first. That's the Drupal core version. So if I hit yes, it's going to go out to the server. It's going to bootstrap Drupal. It's going to do the toolbar. If I go back to the site, no more toolbar. But if I want to do PM enable, this is in Drush, and I can do dash yes if I don't want to be prompted, like, do I really want to enable admin menu? And then I'll go ahead and say, OK, let me go turn on admin menu. And I'll go back. And now I have admin menu on my site. And all running Drush on the command line from my local machine, which is super great. Because Drush does a lot of things. It'll you can write your own custom commands. If you type Drush with just the alias, it'll like give you a list of all the things. So you can sort of see. I can sort of show you the. So there's some stuff for Drush Make, which is a cool package sort of builder for Drupal. Some stuff for views. There's some stuff for users. Some stuff for a project like enabling and downloading modules. Some stuff for dealing with fields. Some stuff for some variables. Some statuses, some indexes, and all the other stuff. It's very easy to make your own Drush commands. A lot of modules have extra stuff, and Drush is like cool, like Swiss Army knife, like I mentioned. The cool stuff, though, for people who are using Drush on Pantheon, we actually give you even more things. So this is new, and we're working on it. But there's this Pantheon system command section, and this is stuff that's just special to Pantheon. So you can sort of see some stuff. So some of it is stuff like is Drupal installed that hopefully you know. But there's other cool stuff. So there's you can clear the APC cache if you have to do specific APC work. You can do this audit cache. This is really good for performance stuff because I can go ahead and run this Pantheon audit cache option. And this will actually go through and it'll make sure my performance settings are correct for running on Pantheon with Varnish. So if I had turned off anonymous caching, it would actually get mad at me and say, hey, your Varnish isn't going to work if you're using that. Or, hey, your minimum cache lifetime or your CSS isn't aggregated and compressed, stuff like that. And that's really nice just in the Drush space because you get those commands only on Pantheon because it's our Drush server sort of injects that stuff and you get some info. We also have the ability to check the database, check the extensions that are enabled. This will allow you, if you're running like dev modules or like field UI or views UI or stuff in production, it'll tell you don't do that. It'll check how much files you have. It'll look at your panels caching and your views caching, which are pretty useful. If you're looking to make a Drupal site faster and using a lot of views or panels, both those modules have really good cache settings, and you can turn those on. And you can run these commands to sort of show you what it is. You can also do to see if Varnish is working. There's this Pantheon audit Varnish. Let's see, and then Varnish, and then actually let's go ahead. We'll try our main site, and this will actually go out. And this is a Drush command that'll actually say, let's go. Oh no, that's not good. Try a different one. Let's try, we'll try Drupal.org. This will actually go ahead and it will download, it'll go ahead and download the latest version and then it'll try to compare it. But it doesn't seem to be very happy. Oh well. Varnish is a very fickle thing, so sorry about that. But I'm not sure. This is new things. I'm not sure if that's the config on its site that's causing trouble, or if it's the or if it's just the command. But these are things we're trying to use, like sort of put on Pantheon to like give developers a little more value and like get access to some of the stuff that maybe you want to sort of see. One of the sort of cooler things we added for front end performance is there's this thing called Google Pagespeed Insights. If you're a developer and you want to make your front end fast, you can actually go to this page and you can go ahead and actually type in your your URL for your page, for your website. Google will actually go out, it'll like download the code and it will look at all of the different pieces and it'll say, oh, like, here's some ideas like, you're using too many images or your JavaScript isn't minified or stuff like this. And all you do is just, and it's free service, you can just go ahead and go to that URL, go to that Google Page Insights, type in your URL, and you can get a lot of info. And it tries to give you some like priorities, so it's like minimize, this is low priority, not as important, but optimizing your images. I think we have some big images on the site. It says you definitely want to do that. And you can do it from the command line using Drush, because you can use this PGI, Google Page Insights command as well, and that'll give you a report. And that's also really cool because one of the other things people use with Drush is they'll do some sort of like continuous integration kind of testing. So they'll actually run a bunch of these Drush commands on the test server every time to make sure stuff is working. But that's a good way just to make sure that your Drupal site is healthy and that you're getting a lot of value out of all the different pieces of Pantheon, and that stuff is sort of where it needs to be. So that's a cool way just to get stuff up and running. It's not as Pantheon specific, but some of the Drush commands are, and that's a good way to get rolling. Other stuff that's helpful. So as I said, we've got the team settings we talked about. You can add new team members. We also have a couple options just under the, there's the plan option, which if you add a credit card to your account, you can pick between personal, pro, business plans, and that's something you can sort of upgrade to if you want. So it's very self-serve for the smaller sites. You don't have to like call anyone or talk to anyone. You can just sort of go live middle of the night. If you've got a bigger site and you want to have an enterprise deal, you can call us and we can talk you through that. The enterprise stuff's sort of fun. We'll do an onboarding process. We'll run all these Drush commands and like do a site audit to make sure your stuff is good, and we'll get you on the platform. But you also get information about your billing. You get a variety of add-ons with Pantheon. So the two add-ons we have right now, everybody gets Solar by default. That's a search index that's very fast. Every Pantheon site has this. You need to install some modules and like get some config running, so it does take a little bit of development, but that's sort of on the scene. We also have this new Relic tool, which is very cool. New Relic basically will do some like application performance monitoring. We did a webinar like last week where actually one of the gentlemen from New Relic came and sort of talked through the tool. It's on our website if you want to check it out, and he sort of explains a lot of the different buttons. But New Relic will help with a lot of performance bottleneck kind of stuff, and it's a good like industry best practice. A lot of people have it, but it's easy to turn on for Pantheon. It's free to use for their basic plan on Pantheon. You sort of hit add, and it's on the site, which is great. You can also delete the site if you're a site owner and get some info about when you created it. And if you're just curious, if you want to know what's the Drupal code that I'm running, there's an upstream link at the bottom, so you can actually go to our GitHub and see all the specific codes that you're running, and you can sort of see the commits. This is just Drupal with our little updates just to make sure everything's really great. But yeah, you can have up to 2 or 3 sites on the platform. I added a few more to myself, and if you ask, you can definitely get more sites. You have like a little like dev sites left, but you get credit once the site goes live. You get another dev site, of course, and yeah, there's other eyes on Pantheon. I mean, that's most of the workflow tools, and there's some other stuff I can talk about. But you get the nice support issues. You can like get Redis added to your site, or if you have a question with the stability of the platform, we have a status page for updating to make stuff get even better, so you can sort of learn what's going on. We're pretty active on Twitter and some other stuff, but. Definitely curious from folks just on, maybe within like the 10 minutes or so we have left, just, questions, or anyone have any hot pressing problems using Drupal that maybe we could answer. Yeah, right there.
What is the highest traffic, not a name, but how large is the highest traffic site that you're supporting on your platform right now?
Well, so just updated now. The highest traffic event was the New Republic magazine, which has been around for a really long time. They just updated to Drupal. It's a really beautiful site, actually, made out of by a number of folks. But Ali Interactive did the Drupal build on Pantheon, and they did 100 million page views that one day. So it pushed a lot of traffic. But there's just a drop in the bucket to all the sites we run. Yeah.
What's your hotfix flow? If you've got stuff in dev that you've been working on, you got hotfixing this stuff too.
Yeah, so the question is around doing hot fixes. If you're working in dev on master and you want to push something forward, that's something that we have we have this pretty expansive help desk page. This is on has a lot of information, a lot of stuff I covered in today's sort of training session, but I wonder if it's on here. Yeah, but we have a whole sort of help page on hot fixes that just walks you through it. Basically, you have to do a specific tag structure to do the hot fixes, but this advanced topics page sort of walks you through what you need to do that. And a lot of questions that people have about the platform are sort of answered here. Like if you like everything about Varnish I talked about is on here. A bunch of different clients for SFTP are on here. A bunch of stuff about using Solar, or about getting email working, or using private files. All the stuff for Drush, understanding Redis, dealing with your keys, setting up and importing sites. This is all sort of right here. We're trying to make it really easy for people to get grooving. Yeah, one other thing which I had actually promised, which I can do. So one thing we're rolling out, which you guys will see, it's one of the newer kind of features we have, is, so this is our public site, which we're working on some new stuff for sure. But one of the new features which you can get for some larger sites is this option called multi-dev. So in your case about hot fixes, right? Like if you're only working in master, you have this problem where, if I have to push something up real fast and something else is in the way, there's a problem. We've got this new option that allows you actually to fork the dev environment on Pantheon. So you can see, sort of like GitHub works for forking. So you can actually take the dev environment and you can make a custom environment under multi-dev for each of the different things. So we're integrating, the Twitter updated their API, or they updated a while ago, but they deprecated their old one, so I need to update this piece. So I have this branch that I'm working on to update the Twitter API, and that actually is a full fork of the entire stack. So it's got MySQL, it's got a web server and all that kind of stuff, and it's sitting right here. And so you can actually, for some of the larger sites, you can use this kind of tool to just do all your dev for new features on these branches, only use master for stuff that needs to go live, and that helps to avoid some of the hotfix considerations. But yeah, we're definitely going to do some talk more about this and roll this out. This is sort of still in beta, so we're still working on it. But obviously dog fooding it for our own stuff just to make sure it works, Yeah, other questions? And actually we may have. Yeah.
What if Drupal is just part of your solution? So if you've got, let's say Node or MongoDB as part of what you're offering, how would you integrate it
with this? Yeah, so the question is, if I want to integrate other stuff than just Drupal, what do you do? So our platform, it'll run all PHP code. So if you have like a little PHP custom script or something, you can definitely still run on the platform. If you're running something like Node or something that's a little heavier, we don't have Mongo support. We have, but you can sometimes use external services for this. That's sort of what we recommend. So yeah, it was. Yeah, and getting stuff in Rackspace can be really smart. So all of our stuff runs in the Rackspace cloud. We love Rackspace. They're smart dudes and ladies. But if you got another server in their data center, then it becomes pretty fast because it's in the same data center. So we definitely would recommend that if you're using stuff. Or there's for Node, there's Node Jitsu, which I was playing around with yesterday. It was a pretty great service. Yeah.
Major version upgrades. What happens when Drupal 8 comes out?
Well, so for handling major upgrades when Drupal 8 comes out, we'll be supporting Drupal 8 as soon as there's a alpha, and sort of getting some, stuff people can try, not stuff that's changing a lot. We'll enable it to the dashboard. You can install new versions of Drupal 8. You can also use this multi-dev tool to have a branch, which is my Drupal 8 upgrade, and you can work on the upgrade, and and then when you're done with that, you can push that through. There'll be a lot of work to upgrade to Drupal 8. Drupal 8 is way different than Drupal 7. The development workflows the code looks different. A lot of patterns look different. All the modules will be different. A lot of modules will be different, but Pantheon will try to make that as easy as possible. We'll be supporting Drupal 8 relatively soon, and then you can try it out on Pantheon as well. One of the great things about Pantheon is that you can try new stuff real easy. So if you're curious about Drupal 8, follow us on Twitter. We'll announce when we have it out there. You can click on a little button, and we'll give you a nice little screen to sort of check it out. And you'll get this kind of experience where you'll have a link to try Drupal 8, and it'll be like, try Drupal 8, and you can go just type in your name or sign your account and go from there. Other than that, there's some new sessions coming up at 11:30, but I would say that I definitely encourage everybody to check out Pantheon, try it out, chat with me, Susan, and Josh. We're all here at the Drupal Camp Austin, but we're also on IRC in the Pantheon channel on Freenode, and definitely we want to try to make Drupal's developers' lives easier. I've done Drupal for a long time. I like Pantheon. I think it's a good level up for people, and we want people to try it. See what you like about it, tweet at us or email us or give us feedback. We're pretty open on that, but we're always looking for new ideas and stuff like that. So thank you all for seeing through the super session. And I'm going to drink some water now, but enjoy the rest of your Drupal Camp Austin.